So I thought I'd do a update on my camera slider, and I've sort of run into a bit of a problem. There's sort of two ways of doing the linear actuator thing. There's this, have the stepper motor go along with the carriage, or have the stepper motor at the end and have an idle pulley at the end, and like this here, you see. And then one part of the belt is connected to the carriage, and then that would slide up and down. And the problem I've got is that I want to make this 2 meters, which is quite long, as you see. But I thought if I'm doing a camera slider, let's make it big, because it's just they cost the longer they are, the more they cost, right? But when you're getting all the raw materials, it's sort of there's not really much in it. It's more the small bits of hardware that cost. The actual lengths of extrusion don't cost that much at all. And also I've gone with an 80 by 40 millimeter extrusion, as opposed to the small camera slider that they have, which is 20 by 40, because I figured that 20 by 40, just imagine that little end bit there, that would probably bend over there. So I mean, you could conceivably get a 20 by 40 and then a 60 by 20, and then make some sort of like T type shape, and then that might reinforce it. But still, I was a bit also 20 mil across for the gantry pulleys. I just thought that would be there'd be a lot of slop in that. You wouldn't be able to put a very heavy camera. I mean, what I'm trying to say, there's a number of competing factors that have kind of slowed me up on the project. I can't decide whether I want to go with the stepper motor going along with the gantry, or the stepper motor at the end with an idle pulley at the other end, and the gantry just connected in the middle. And the advantage of it is if I had a pan and tilt head, I could have all the electronics in one place, and the only thing that would go to it would be the power, right? And over 2 meters, because obviously, you know, the longer the power cable, or the longer the cables, the more resistance there is in the wire. And I was just a bit concerned that if I had, let's say the gantry was on the one end of the 2 meter length, and the stepper motor was in the other end, the controlling lines going to it would be over 2 meters, and I think that's probably there'll be too much resistance perhaps with that. But then the flip side of the coin is that if you're shifting the gantry with a stepper motor on it, stepper motors are quite heavy, so you're adding more weight to the gantry, so you won't be able to lift as much. So it's sort of trying to pick which one I want to go with. I mean, I quite like the sort of clean look of the pulley method, as opposed to with having the stepper motor on the gantry, but it has this issue of if I made it 2 meters long, the stepper motor wires would have to go 2 meters. I think that's probably too long. Whereas I mean, one idea would be to have the controller. I mean, I really wanted to put the controller either with the riding along the gantry. I mean, it's where I put the stepper motor controller board. I mean, I guess halfway, 1 meter in the middle wouldn't be so bad then, because then the wires would only ever go 1 meter. That's probably the smart idea, I guess, to put the controller in the middle, and then have all the wires go to the stepper motors, so it'll only ever be 1 meter away from the controller. But that's all of them. I mean, as I say, or have it the control board and all the stepper motors and everything on the gantry adds all that weight. But then you just have this power cable, which you could have, which would only be maybe, you know, halfway in the middle or something. So that's the problem. I sort of can't really decide. I mean, I knew it's sort of my indecision over which is the best way of going about it. If I'm going to make something, I want to make sure it's sort of. I mean, this is the problem. Is I'm kind of resigned to the fact I'm probably only going to make this twice, because the first one will go so far, and part of me is thinking. Initially, I only ever wanted to make a slider, and now I've added the pan and tilt. It's just added all this level of complexity in terms of where I put the control board. Because if I only ever wanted a slider, I'd go with the pulley method over here, which is probably, I'm sort of gravitating towards that, because all this extra stuff I was thinking I could add more stepper motors, I could do a pan and tilt, and then it was like, and then suddenly you have these issues that I didn't initially think about. But I guess with the if I'm using the same parts, then I mean, you can see we've got the stepper motor plate there and stepper motor plate there. So if I just all this, I can always rearrange it to this. The only thing that's different really are these spacer block things to allow the pulley to go through. And one other thing, just talking about Shaper 3D. I mean, it's working out pretty well as a sort of way of assembling things. But is I've got a Spacenavigator because it's really meant for multi-touch on the iPad, and it doesn't work as well with the multi-touch and the Wacom or the Cintiq. So I've gone with the Spacenavigator, and it works an absolute charm. Even the fit thing that doesn't always work in apps, he says, it's not working now typically, that works. So you can fit. Is that going to do it for us? No, it's not going to do it for now. He says, right, okay, that's not working for us. But anyway, that aside, it is actually really accurate. I mean, it's as good as it is in SketchUp, and it's good and in Blender it's really good. So those three apps work really well. What doesn't work so well is FreeCAD. I mean, I'm going slightly into different subject with the Spacenavigator, but I can highly recommend if you're using the Shaper 3D program and you use Blender, the blue knob navigation thing works really well. You can get super, granular, and it's sort of, consistent across the applications, and you don't have to learn new shortcuts or whatever. Yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. Okay, I think that's going to be about it for this video. But yeah, it's just this sort of you get to a point with the project where you have to make a decision between which approach you want to go with, and I think I've answered my own question by pretty much thinking, well, I can build both methods from the same parts, so I don't need to decide right away. The only thing I was going to decide on is the controller. You can get like a stepper controller that has a built-in driver and Wi-Fi shield and app, which is great because that means all the software side of things is done, and you can just drive it with your phone. It's only limited to one motor. Okay, I'm going to stop the video there. But that was it really, just to talk about sort of why things haven't progressed. Is I can't make up my mind between the two, but now I've decided I think I'll just go with the pulley system, and yeah, rather than ride along with the gantry stroke carriage thing. The only thing is I will be buying a stepper motor controller and Wi-Fi shield, which is kind of extra expense as opposed to have it all controlled with one board. Many motors controlled with one board. I can only use it for this one, the stepper motor driver and the shield for this one linear actuator. Okay, that's it. I'll stop the video now.